Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, you weirdos. Jim here. And once again, we do indeed have breaking news. And this is something near and dear to my heart because it involves Star Wars and Star Wars comics. And I don't know if everybody listening right now realizes that I had a Star Wars comic podcast for quite some time, going through the current books, made it to the Dark Droids event, and never saw the end of that. It's very similar to my deal with the X-Men comics and the Hellfire Galas, which is very odd to have to say that in plural. But with all of that, again, Star Wars, one of my favorite things of all time. And it's a weird thing. I know that people fight about Star Wars. It's become more of a cultural war type fight thing. I don't really get into that. I am a original trilogy fan, and really, if I actually sat and thought of the rankings that I'd have for the movies, they probably just go by release date of how I did enjoy them, because I'm one of the ones that ended up loving Star Wars / New Hope the most. I thought that that was a great movie, but I love the original trilogy. So when the comics ended up doing that between Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi, I was all in. We were doing our podcast. It started to get stale. It started to get overly event things going on, and it just ended up that we stopped it. And it wasn't even because it wasn't doing well. It was actually doing fairly well. But we just couldn't take it. Me and my man, Matt, we're doing that, and we're both big Star Wars fans. So this is news, as I said, near and dear to my heart. Not just the idea, an era is ending. It's actually that I'm very excited to see what is going to come next, and the creative teams on the books as they are announced coming up in, it says sometime soon, and maybe get back to doing a bit more of the Star Wars comics. But here is the official press release from Marvel. The headline is Marvel Comics makes way for the next era of Star Wars comic book storytelling with 2 giant-sized finale issues. I said at one point, the way that the Star Wars books were going, I really thought that they were going to transition into the Return of the Jedi time when you had the anniversary for the Return of the Jedi. That was last year. They didn't do that. And again, it almost kind of apes or mimics how I felt about the X-Men books. At one point, it just kept going and it went on a little too long and it got stale. So it is kind of that weird, intertwined deal of my fandom in there. But here is again straight from the wire, as I like to say, but straight from the press release from Marvel. Marvel Comics' current era of Star Wars comics set between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi comes to an end this September in Star Wars number 50 and Star Wars Darth Vader number 50, the 2 left standing. And then it says, stay tuned in the weeks ahead for an announcement of what's next for Marvel's line of Star Wars comics and whether or not they are going to follow a bit of Return of the Jedi or shift to post-Jedi, which is where I think a lot of fans want to go. You want to see that new canon, that new deal going afterwards. I'm looking forward to that, but I would like to see at least some bit of Return of the Jedi, maybe showing it from a different angle, stuff like that. But here we go. For nearly 5 years, Marvel Comics has delivered Star Wars comic book series set in a largely unexplored period between The Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi. Across titles like Star Wars Darth Vader, Star Wars Dr. Aphra, and Star Wars Bounty Hunters, which I think actually was a bit of an underrated book. I actually like that third. I did really like the Star Wars and Darth Vader books. Aphra started out okay. Alyssa Wong's story seemed to kind of get stretched a little and went to weird places, but fans have experienced the adventures of Luke, Leia, Lando, and more iconic heroes embarking on during one of the darkest times for the rebellion to discover the trials Darth Vader overcame during a pivotal turning point on his journey through the dark side. Now this exciting chapter comes to an end in September with 2 oversized epics, Star Wars number 50 and Star Wars Darth Vader number 50. Then later this year, Marvel Comics will take readers to a different era of the galaxy far, far away. Stay tuned in the coming weeks for more information. Again, I think that if they were going to go straight up during Return of the Jedi, they would probably say that. I do think they're trying to, iron some things out, and I do believe we'll see post-Jedi, which will be really cool. I do want to see that. Both finales, or both final issues, will be 50-page extravaganzas, they say. And Charles Soule and Metabak Musa Bekov's Star Wars number 50, Jedi Master Luke Skywalker must teach his student Ben Solo a powerful lesson about the true balance between light and dark. He offers up a tale from the days of the Rebel Alliance that touches on multiple eras of Star Wars history and brings this epic run to a thrilling, incredible climax. And maybe right there's hinting of how we're going to go forward with that. And that's really cool. That is a cool play. That's what I said. That's really what I want. That's what I want fully. And Charles Soule, he's good. His Darth Vader book before was great. It's just, I don't know. A lot of his writing, in my mind, and people may disagree with me, it ends up feeling a little too technically good, but not exciting. Some of the things, especially the Star Wars stuff, it feels like, okay, you know what you're doing. You kind of know, the lay of the land, you know the lore, but you just don't have that spark. And whether or not he had it and then lost it, what happened, I don't know. But the Star Wars book, the things he was doing with Lando, stuff like that, it just, I don't know. It just never felt like it had that full out, oh my God, it's so cool, adventurous type deal. And it might be because it is between Empire and Jedi, a dark time with that. And then it continues. Then acclaimed writer Greg Pak closes out the longest running Darth Vader comic series ever. I would not say it's the best Darth Vader series ever. It's alongside artist Raphael Ienko. Hate when they spell the name out at all. I always want to say Lenko, Ienko. And more in Star Wars Darth Vader number 50. Pax Rung reaches its stunning conclusion as the dark heart of the Sith comes full circle. Darth Vader finally unleashes the unfathomable power he's accumulated through the Schism Imperial against the only person in the galaxy he hates more than he hates himself, Emperor Palpatine. Yeah, I don't think that'll quite work out just yet. That's the other thing. That was a big bit of problem between Empire and Jedi, where as you kept going further and further and closer to Jedi, you're wondering, like, why were these big things not something in the movie? And that is kind of the path you kind of have to navigate when you do have things between movies and stuff like this. Obviously, you can't change the movies, and you want to tell cool stories, so it kind of ends up where some things you kind of roll your eyes at, but also featuring the final twist in the saga for key characters like Luke, Leia, Sabe, which I did like, Ochi, who, if you haven't been reading the books, Ochi is the best character. He is awesome. He is a guy who is just desperately trying to be friends with Darth Vader, and Darth Vader doesn't want friends, so it's kind of funny for him to be this lackey type guy, but he's also doing his own thing. Really cool. And the droid Z67, Sly Moore, not a fan of Sly Moore. The members of the Schism Imperial and more. Sly Moore does sound like it'd be like an 80s band, right? Like a power pop type 80s band. I think so. But that's the press release. The books are going to end. It's going to be at issues 50. That kind of makes sense the way they're going. But again, to get to that 50, maybe they went a little too long, whatever. But I'm going to read these. I haven't read the books. I haven't read any of the Star Wars line of books since about a quarter of the way through the Dark Droids. I just had enough and didn't look back until now. But I had said, even when we were doing the Star Wars podcast, that when the new era comes and that I'll be excited again, hopefully. It really is going to, teeter on the deal of what the era is, how they're explaining it, and the creative teams, of course. So with all that, if you are into the Star Wars books and you have some sort of like, hey, I wish this writer did Star Wars, I wish this writer, all that going on, I would love to hear from you in the comments and then talk about maybe if you have been reading the Star Wars comics or what would make you come back or at least start reading the Star Wars comics just as a last second deal. I don't know. And the one thing about the Star Wars comics and who you would want to have write, I don't know, as a matter of fact, who, when, or what, if they're Star Wars fans. I'd rather, or at least actually almost demand, that the way that they play it out is with fans that are writing the books. But if Donny Cates can come back and he is a fan of Star Wars, I'd love to have him on the books. That's just one out of the top of my head. But I hope that they just kind of look at some of the things, maybe even look at like how things are running at the Energon side of things in the indie comics deal, or maybe even the Ghost Machine. I end up really liking those books right now. I'm a big 2 guy. but I'm loving the indie stuff right now. And whether it's because the indie stuff is great or the big two stuff is bad, you could kind of debate that. But I'd like them to set up that sort of universe the way that they did the Energon. Have a couple books come out, then another one comes out, a mini series, and tie them all in to expand it all and hopefully have a pretty cool era going forward, because I'd really enjoy that. But let me know. I know that was kind of meandering at the end, but it also deals with a video that I'm working in my mind. So I ended up having a little bit of scrambled eggs brains, is what my mom used to say that I had all the time, because she was such a lovely lady. Such a lovely lady she was, making fun of me. But with all that, thanks, everybody. And I will talk to you later.
Weird science is the revolution.